with the big picture. And then for the last segment, we're looking at elections. I think this is really the case study and looking at big data and elections, and then possibly also looking at implications looking forward to 2016. So for the next segment of today's discussion, we're looking at, we have invited Senator Grace Poe. As you know, she topped the senatorial contest. She was a dark horse. I think nobody saw that she would be #1. She wasn't appearing in the surveys, and then all of a sudden, come election day, the day after, when the numbers started coming in, she was #1. Grace Poe Manzares won with over 20 million votes and a lead of almost 2 million over the second senator who won. She is also the daughter of movie actor Fernando Poe Jr. and actress Susan Roses. She led a quiet life away from the limelight until her father ran and lost in the 2004 presidential elections. She joined the poll watchdog Contra Daya as a staunch advocate of electoral reform. On October 2010, she was appointed chairperson of the Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, where she established a new age-appropriate rating system and advocated the policy of intelligent viewership instead of censorship. In the Senate, she is currently the chairperson of the Committee on Public Information and Mass Media and the Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senator Grace Poe.
Thank you, Chai. Good afternoon to everyone. Senator Sonny Angara, who was just here, Congressman Miro Kimbo, Congressman Toby Tiangco, who was also just here, COMELEC Chairman Sixto Brillantes, Rappler CEO Maria Ressa, Google Country Head Narciso Reyes, and to everyone again, good afternoon. I'm supposed to talk to you this afternoon about how I managed to become #1 and the role that social media played in our campaign in the last elections. To tell you the truth, I am perhaps not the most qualified person to talk to you about this topic because, believe it or not, when I first started and I decided to run for public office late last year, I was totally unprepared. This is because, for one, I did not have any strong organization or nationwide machinery to back me up. Although I grew up and went to school in the Philippines, I have been living in the States, and after I graduated from college, I've been staying there. Therefore, I did not have the opportunity to develop a nationwide network of professional colleagues, friends, and private supporters, like what most individuals with national ambitions usually do. Of course, there were the remnants of the FPJ for President movement, but the organization in 2013 was no longer the strong nationwide grassroots organization that it was in 2004. Second, I did not have the necessary resources to mount a serious campaign. I did not have a clear picture of how much a senatorial campaign would cost all in all. I had somewhat of an idea, but certainly not as close as what it entailed towards the end. There were many pledges and expressions of support from friends, but one can never really be sure if they would eventually fulfill their promise to contribute later. Last, I'm not really a political strategist and have no extensive campaign experience, unlike most of my fellow candidates. When I was in college, I was active in campus politics, and when I was studying in Massachusetts, I volunteered in the gubernatorial campaign of William Weld. William Weld was a bit of an underdog. He was a Republican running in a traditional Democratic state, and I was an intern in his campaign. But that was pretty much summing up my entire electoral campaign experience, aside from running for the student council when I was at the University of the Philippines. So what made me decide to take the plunge into politics? The foremost reason would have to be my personal desire to redeem and achieve a sense of justice for my father. As you know, my father ran for president in 2004, and many believe was cheated out of his rightful victory. More than anything, I wanted to find out if people still remember FPJ and whether they want me to continue his legacy. This was really the spark that made me decide to vie for senator, a national position, because FPJ touched the lives of people not just in one particular locality or area or congressional district, but basically a lot of our countrymen nationwide. This personal longing to continue FPJ's legacy was the fire that kept me going during the tough and challenging times of the campaign. Ayokong pahiyain ang kanyang pangalan at ang kanyang alaala. Hindi naman pwede siguro na if I don't make it, okay lang yun, wag naman masyadong malayo. So I really worked hard. And it's still what sustains me today. This is the reason why I decided to peg my name to that of my father. From the get-go, I introduced myself as Grace Poe, anak ni FPJ. And throughout the campaign period, never for once did I feel the need to change this core message. As the campaign progressed, my political advisors came up with catchy slogans like, Grace Poe, ang inumpisahan ng tatay ko, ipagpapatuloy ko, from his movie, Umpisahan Mo, Tatapusin Ko. We also presented a simple campaign platform such as POE, acronym which stands for Poverty Alleviation, Opportunities for All, and Electoral Reform. These slogans and taglines were just all variations of the same Anak ni FPJ theme, and judging from the election results, our communication strategy seemed to have gained resonance and converted a lot of Filipino voters. Even before the official campaign period started, we were already waging an aggressive campaign in the tri-media, print, TV, and radio. We also attempted to engage social media netizens mainly through Twitter and Facebook. My Facebook page, which now has gotten 60,000 likes, not as much as Senator Bam Aquino or Senator Sonny Angara, but it was quite an achievement for us because when we started, we had about 3,000, and it stayed at about 3,500 likes until a month before elections. So I will discuss this further later by reading my son, who was in charge of this part of my campaign, because I wasn't really hands-on when it came to strategizing what our social media plan will be. So my Facebook doubled as a website where one can view my biography, campaign platform, and photos of my sorties. We focused our resources to buy as much TV and radio airtime we could afford and was allowed by the COMELEC. In January 2013, before the official campaign period started, Maalaala Mo Kaya, ABS-CBN, aired my story in an episode entitled Sanggol, the story of Grace Poe. It may interest you to know that after my MMK telemovie, my campaign staff noticed a sharp spike in my search volume in Google, which meant that people started being curious and started noticing me. So actually, there's a side story to this. I remember having an interview also with somebody from GMA7, Howie Severino. And he asked me, you're going to have your story featured in MMK. Isn't this EPAL? And I said, well, let me tell you, my goal, there's no denying, is to introduce myself in this campaign. Number two, I don't think ABS-CBN will risk showcasing your story if there was really no interesting plot. I mean, they'll just receive a lot of flack to it. And third, even if it's not maybe as colorful as other things being presented there, I also wanted to make sure that I presented myself in as honest as possible. Because my campaign was Grace Poe, anak ni FPJ, but here I am, admitting to you that this is the circumstance of my birth. I am not the biological child of FPJ. So from the get-go, even before the campaign started, you know who I am. And it was also like a side, maybe an advocacy also, to remove the stigma that it has here in our country, that if you're adopted, then you deserve, you're not as deserving as a biological child. So you have to prove yourself more. Anyway, my survey rankings went up. I trusted the survey put out by Pulse Asia. And that's it. What I lacked in experience, I made up for in terms of hard work and diligence. Well, Senator Angara knows this. You know, another side story. During the campaign, when the campaign period started, every 2 weeks we will be looking at each other. We're so nervous because when it's Pulse Asia, more or less I feel confident that they would be fair. And then this other company will come out, and then from number maybe 8, I'll be number 12 or 11. And then so every time, Senator Sonny, Senator Bam, and I would always be so nervous every 2 weeks whenever the surveys would come out. So what I lacked in experience, I made up for in terms of hard work and diligence on the campaign trail. I attended as many debates as I could handle. Maria Ressa was right that I was very worried when I heard that there was a mood meter for the Rappler debate, because I know I never really had a good showing in social media. But I was there already, so I kept my promise. But yeah, I was really nervous. And then I kept my campaign speeches very short, as in 5 minutes, tapos. I peppered my speeches with po as a sort of subliminal message to help people remember my name. I also cracked jokes to help the audience, to keep the audience entertained. Like, ako ang pinakamagalang na kandidato. I mean, you know, just something very simple, but something they could remember. But I never ended my speeches without gently reminding people about FPJ and his aspirations for the people. So I always quoted his movie lines. One of them is, kapag puno na ang salop, dapat nang kalusin, at hindi ako kumakain ng bigas, sinasaing ko muna para maging kanin, kayo palay pa lang, nilalamon nyo na. So these are the things that people, especially in the countryside, appreciated. I was perhaps very lucky because I had many good, highly competent people helping me. I relied on the advice of Senator Serge Osmeña, who is a very good political strategist, but more importantly, who is scientific in his approach. He gave me a gift before the campaign started. He called me to his house. He said, "Grace, let's have dinner. I have something for you." I commissioned the survey. I commissioned the survey for you, and these are the results of the survey. It was this thick. And what he said is, he asked people, it was a survey that he commissioned, a survey to ask people what they like and remember most about FPJ. And he told me to stick to that message. That message was, si FPJ ay tumutulong sa kapwa. And Senator Cheese Escudero, who mentored me also on the do's and don'ts of the campaign trail. In fact, I sort of piggybacked or nakiangkas with Senator Chee's political organization. He and Senator Serge would compare, where am I lagging, where am I doing well. So anyway, whenever we go to the province, we'd usually wake up at 3 a.m., 4 days a week. Wake up at 3 a.m., wheels up 4:30 a.m., back in Manila 7 p.m., again, 4 days a week. And Senator Cheese, every time I remember I'm in a province, I'd say, "Uy, ang ganda naman dito, let's have a picture taken." Or magpag-picture tayo dito. He'll say, "Tigilan mo nga yan, hindi ka turista, kandidato ka, bumalik ka na lang dito pag nanalo ka na." No time, not even to eat, and I kid you not. With Senator Cheese, we meet the leaders or media people, that's our lunch break. How can you have a lunch break with that? And then, when I came back, I had to attend to my own affairs because this is basically based on the schedule of Senator Cheese. So, aside from the 4 days, I had my own commitments also after that. So, it was really tiring. I felt like I was going to collapse after the campaign. So my campaign also received a big boost from our ad campaigns. Our strategy was simple but disciplined. Like any product being launched, we had to answer key things. First of all, introduce the product. Make sure that the product is known. Number two, what can the product do? And number three, have somebody credible to endorse the product. So that's what I did. We had the Po and Opo ads, if you remember, the Tao Po ads. Actually, I got so much flack from people in the social media for that. So it is such a no-brainer. It was so redundant. But after that, I said, no, be patient. I remember talking to Natasha, and I said, Natasha, we're going to have other ads after that. That was the introduction. The second one is, what can this candidate do? So what will this candidate be? So I had Zoran and Carmina, not because they were big celebrities or super popular, but because they had a good reputation. They didn't have perfect backgrounds, but then they were able to raise two wonderful kids and have a nice family now. I mean, a very wholesome family now. So they were the ones who said, si Grace Poe iboto nyo dahil magbibigay dangal siya sa tatay niyang si FPJ. So that started it. At hindi lang sa tatay niya, kundi sa ating lahat. So that was the message of Carmina. But the clincher, the last part, was with my mom saying, bakit ka tumatakbong senador? We wanted to make it as simple as possible. Dahil gusto kong makatulong, again, the message of Senator Serge, makatulong, maibsan ang kahirapan. And then, paano mo gagawin yan? So I stated, para sa magsasaka, para sa manggagawa. And the assurance came in, promise yan ha, pagbutihan mo. So that's how it went in the campaign. We really studied it. And of course, President Aquino gave also the endorsement. And that's really important because finally it drew the line. It said exactly where I stood. So with him saying, si Grace po ipagpapatuloy ang sinimula ng tatay niya. And our backgrounds are not exactly the same, but it's similar. His father also died. His father is also loved by a lot of our countrymen, and he's basically continuing the legacy of his family. So anyway, just to shorten this, my son, I asked him, Brian, can you write something about what we did for our social media? So he said, we started our Facebook campaign around December 3. None of us were exactly experts, and we didn't invest too much in our online campaign. One of the sites that we knew and were familiar with was Rappler, of course. We started out with a very small following. Somewhere around 3,500 people had liked the page by the start of the campaign period. But in order to get our page likes up, it took some investing. We realized that with a limited network, we could only gather so many organic likes. Organic likes are page likes which are not assisted by page advertising or post promoting. So with a little over a month and a half left, we decided to invest heavily in our online campaign. Originally, the page was being used as a public album, and then later on, our activity increased. So when he said we spent heavily, what he meant was we spent 30,000 pesos for a month and a half. Airtime on television is 350,000 pesos for 30 seconds. So, you know, I think it's pretty reasonable. My son said, Moms, we really have to start advertising online. And I said, okay, but how much will it cost? I don't know, like, I think, and then he computed like maybe 30,000, like, go. So it worked. So from 3,000, it was like 50,000. Then, our goal was to be 35,000 at least by the end of the campaign period. But we reached 60,000. Now he's not advertising anymore. So we're still at like 60-something thousand. Anyway, so I guess with all of that, I'm just going to go. My son's going to ask me, so did you read everything I wrote? But anyway, he wrote more than what I wrote. But he said, in order to make advertising efficient, we needed a good product. Of course, he's my son, so he said that. We believe that people just needed to get to know the candidate better, and that once they gave her a chance, the rest would do itself. And then he said investments, and then better page management, better highlighting and minimizing, a more interactive nature with crowd-pleasing fun photos. He also said, we restructured the page and highlighted our major events, single photos and infographics, while we discovered that people did not want to spend time watching the videos, reading the links, and loading entire albums. So it was just like single photos. Anyway, that's just something that he wanted me to share. So never in my wildest dreams did I expect to be number one. I was working so that Senator Cheese would make it actually to be number one. If you're going to ask me how I did it, I cannot say for sure. But seriously speaking, I think it was really the FPJ factor, more than anything else, that made me win. Pinoy announced officially that I was in Team Pinoy when he was at the APEC Summit in Vladivostok. For me, the place is significant because of a story I had read written by Leo Tolstoy, which reminded me of what we went through for 9 years after the 2004 elections. Tolstoy's story took place in Vladivostok, and the title of the story is God Sees the Truth But Waits. For me and for many, my victory validates FPJ's victory in 2004. I would like to congratulate Rappler and thank you for this opportunity. I'm glad it's over though. Thank you.
Thank you very much.